Welcome to the third in this series of GCSE English Literature videos aimed at showing you exactly what a grade 9 response looks like. This time, we're interested in Dickens' presentation of love. Stay tuned.
A reminder of the mark schemes. AO1, sharp focus on question, nuance, detailed understanding of the novel, genuinely interesting, accurate writing, short embedded quotations. AO2, detailed insight into the language using accurate subject terminology. AO3, understanding of the context. Perhaps like me, you might find it helpful to read Judith Flanders's Victorian City. Here's the question. Explore Dickens' presentation of love in this extract and elsewhere in the novel. In this extract, Pip finds out that Estella is engaged to marry Bentley Drummle. "Oh, Estella," I answered as my bitter tears fell fast on her hands, do what I would to restrain them. Even if I remained in England and could hold my head up with the rest, how could I see you Drummle's wife? "Nonsense," she returned, "nonsense. This will pass in no time." "Never, Estella. You will get me out of your thoughts in a week." "Out of my thoughts? You are part of my existence, part of myself. You have been in every line I've ever read since I first came here, the rough common boy whose poor heart you wounded even then. You have been in every prospect I have ever seen since, on the river, on the sails of the ships, on the marshes, in the clouds, in the light, in the darkness, in the wind, in the woods, in the sea, in the streets. You have been the embodiment of every graceful fancy that my mind has ever become acquainted with. The stones of which the strongest London buildings are made are not more real or more impossible to be displaced by your hands than your presence and influence have been to me, there and everywhere, and will be. Estella, to the last hour of my life, you cannot choose but remain part of my character, part of the little good in me, part of the evil. But in this separation, I associate you only with the good, and I will faithfully hold you to that always, for you must have done me far more good than harm. Let me feel now what sharp distress I may. Oh, God bless you. God forgive you." In what ecstasy of unhappiness I got those broken words out of myself, I don't know. The rhapsody welled up within me, like blood from an inward wound, and gushed out. I held her hand to my lips some lingering moments, and so I left her. But ever afterwards I remembered, and soon afterwards with stronger reason, that while Estella looked at me merely with incredulous wonder, the spectral figure of Miss Havisham, her hand still covering her heart, seemed all resolved into a ghastly stare of pity and remorse. Have a go at writing your own response, but before doing so, plan. Here's how my plan looks. Read it. The video will resume in 5 seconds' time. Here's the question again and the first part of the extract. The second part will appear 5 seconds later, so you can toggle between the slides. Press pause to get writing. Here's my response. In this extract, Dickens shows the extraordinary passion and longevity of Pip's love for Estella. He claims that Estella has infiltrated his very being and tells her, "You have been in every line I have ever read since I first came here, the rough common boy, whose poor heart you wounded even then." If we take Pip's words at face value, the suggestion is that feelings of love have the potential to change our entire perspective on life. It is impossible to stop thinking about the object of our adoration, so much so that we cannot help seeing and imagining them within very different contexts, such as our private reading. However, the fact that Pip describes himself as the rough common boy smacks, at least to the modern reader, of paranoia, and opens up the possibility that one reason he is so obsessed with Estella is because she opened his eyes to class differences, something which has preoccupied him ever since. In other words, he may be as much consumed with his desire to escape his humble roots as he is with her. That said, his language is unquestionably romantic and deeply felt in this extract, aided by his use of anaphora. You have been is repeated 3 times, which helps him reference even more places in which he has pictured Estella, in the clouds, in the light, in the darkness, etc. However, it is important to point out that Pip is speaking these passionate words to a woman who is shortly to marry another man. Even more pertinently, note her reaction. Estella looked at him with incredulous wonder. In other words, his extraordinary loving rhetoric is entirely wasted. The adjective incredulous confirms that Estella simply doesn't understand what Pip is saying, or doesn't believe that he would waste his time maintaining feelings for her which will never be reciprocated. No sympathy or empathy will be forthcoming. So the impression within this extract is certainly that Pip's love is futile, especially given that it causes him so much pain. His tears are bitter, and he refers to his language as gushing like blood from an inward wound. This simile emphasises, yes, that his feelings are natural and are a part of him, like blood, but they also suggest that his love for Estella has caused him significant unseen damage, which will take some considerable time to heal. Elsewhere in the novel, love is also shown to cause considerable pain. There are some highly unsatisfactory marriages. Presumably the participants loved each other at some point, in which one side is violent, Mrs. Gargery, or so self-indulgent as to be an unwittingly malign influence, Mrs. Pocket. Nonetheless, the most obvious example of the pain caused by love is found in Miss Havisham, who is literally rotting and festering after being jilted by Compeyson. In chapter 22, Herbert tells Pip her miserable love story, in which she passionately loved and perfectly idolised, only to be used financially and discarded on the day of her wedding. Consequently, she elected to pause her life completely and has brought up her adopted daughter to wreak revenge on men on her behalf. In chapter 8, during Pip's first visit to Sass's house, he overhears Miss Havisham telling Estella to break his heart. These words imply not only just how devastating and harmful unrequited love can be, but also how feelings of bitterness can linger post-love and be so strong that you can potentially dedicate a child's entire upbringing in pursuit of revenge. However, Miss Havisham is unquestionably weird and an exception, and there are other pre-marriage relationships which show the joy which love can bring. Towards the end of the novel, Pip arrives back at the forge to find Biddy in a burst of happiness having married Joe. The image suggests that Biddy's entire being is completely full with joy, that there is no room for anything else. Similarly, Wenwick's marriage to Miss Skiffin seems happy, albeit rather eccentric in its secrecy and decoying presence of a fishing rod, signified by the latter now submitting to be embraced as that melodious instrument might have done, i.e. a cello. Modern feminists may take umbrage with the passivity implied by this image and the verb submitted, which may indicate concern for propriety over personal pleasure. But nonetheless, there is a sense that this characteristically Victorian union is likely to lead to contentment and natural procreation. But it is Dickens's presentation of non-romantic love between friends which seems most worthy of celebration in the novel. Herbert and Pip develop the closest of relationships and, unlike with so many of the married couples, act selflessly and lovingly support each other. From Pip's machinations to set Herbert up in business, to Herbert's diplomacy when teaching social skills or steadfast support with Magwitch, Dickens shows the value of love in friendship. Seeing the change in Herbert's demeanour following his secret intervention, Pip writes, "I had the greatest difficulty in restraining my tears of triumph when I saw him so happy." Note the selflessness here. Pip himself has nothing to gain personally from Herbert becoming successful in business. Yet his friend's success still evokes the strongest emotional response. In contrast, the end of the novel seems to suggest that Pip and Estella will finally get married, yet it is impossible to forget Pip's repeated comments throughout the novel that he never was happy with her, but always miserable. In Great Expectations, it is the non-romantic love and loyalty displayed by the likes of Joe and Herbert towards Pip, and Pip himself towards Herbert, which seems the most straightforward and fulfilling, not the strange romantic love Pip persists in holding towards that weird freak, Estella. Why does this get full marks for AQA and OCR? Well, for AO1, my response is informed, personal, and interesting to read. I give an opinion. I don't just rehash revision guides. And as long as it stems from a detailed understanding of the text, the examiner will love it. There are short embedded quotations which ebb and flow seamlessly within my sentences. And note that I'm showing a critical, perceptive understanding of Pip's language in the extract. Yes, on one level, he is professing undying, never-ceasing love, but is there not also a sense of an unnecessary, unhealthy preoccupation with his own humble origins? AO2, very specific and detailed when exploring language, in this case, the simile about blood gushing from an inward wound. Whilst I also employ subject terminology accurately, as shown in the use of the term simile and adjective. Finally, AO3, I implicitly contrast Victorian and 21st century perspectives. We as modern readers are likely to view less favourably the concept of a woman merely submitting to a man's affectionate manoeuvres.
That's it. I hope it's been useful. If it has, put a comment within the YouTube section below. But remember, getting good at Great Expectations essays is not just about watching YouTube videos, but about reading, rereading and annotating the text. Good luck with it all, and many thanks for watching.